'Tis the season once again to be putting out the Christmas lights and decorations. And the season will be, of course, involved with merriment of being around your loved ones, as well as being a little more charitable than you normally would be. As the winter begins to kick off. So, you're probably wondering, what's St. Nick got to do with the birth of Jesus? And why do we celebrate this anyway? Also, I'm curious, why is a Yuletide tradition written into a Christian Christmas song? I thought that was only for heathens. So anyway, we're going to be beginning the Bard's Archives first, and hopefully not its last, installment of Christmas and its complicated history. So, St. Nicholas. No, not that one. He looks sad. Yes, this one. It's more like it. St. Nick was born in Patara, Turkey. I'm not sure if it looks as though how it is today. I'm pretty sure under Roman occupation it would have looked a lot nicer. But St. Nick was born here and under Roman occupancy during the rise of Christianity. He himself decided he wanted to become a priest, and although he was born into wealth, he wanted to utilize both his position and use his money for good deeds. So his first good act while he was a young man, surprisingly, back during his day in the late 200s, Nick heard that there was a man who was incapable of paying what would be known as a dowry. A dowry was the fee you had to pay to get married. And so he had 3 daughters that needed to get married, or they most likely were going to be sold as either slaves or prostitutes. So Nick snuck off in the middle of the night and left all 3 dowries in the house. Something along those lines. And it was really just the beginning of many acts of generosity and charity that he had later grown a reputation for, potentially have even inspired others. He was also a man of action, who committed many great acts of bravery. He once pulled the sword from a Roman executioner and saved 3 lives. And at the Council of Nicaea, I think more so because the guy was corrupt rather than him speaking heresy, ran across a room and punched a guy right in the face. Why don't we have that in our Christmas specials? I mean, come on, it's historically accurate too, people. I'd be willing to direct that. Before we go further down St. Nicholas's story, there's also 2 other holidays, Saturnalia and Yule. Saturnalia was a Roman holiday, and Yule was a Northwestern European holiday. Yule was celebrated somewhere from about now until February. No, Valentine, you're not going to tie any knots today. You have to wait 2 more months.
A lot of people have this idea that Christmas was originally on the solstice, and that it was then kind of shunted, perhaps due to changes in the calendar, or perhaps some pope changed it to the 25th. But really, it was it used to be on the 21st. But actually, Christmas Day was never, ever on the solstice. Not ever, ever, ever. And I can absolutely sort of explain why this. And it is about Saturnalia. It's all about Saturnalia. It's nothing to do with Northwestern European paganism. It's everything to do with Saturnalia. So when
those no good Romans,
no, those bloody Romans have got a lot to answer for. I'll tell you, they really have. I mean, we can talk about midwinter, and then we can talk about the Romans in midsummer and the kind of havoc they've created with our calendars there. But with regard to midwinter, when Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire, they did away with a lot of pagan customs, but they couldn't get away with doing away with Saturnalia because it was just far too popular. You know, the mob in Rome loved Saturnalia, so they Saturnalia just went ahead, whatever. Saturnalia, as you can imagine, was a period marked by raucous festivities, drinking, overeating, overindulgence in everything that the church kind of disapproved of. So it was not a time that that the church wanted to have associated with Christianity in any way, shape, or form. Okay, they didn't want this idea that Christianity was really to do with Saturnalia. So they waited until Saturnalia was over, and then they held Christmas. So the solstice is kind of because the period of Saturnalia covers the solstice. The solstice does have something to do with Christmas, but it's wanting to avoid the solstice, that it happened on the 25th of December. It's not wanting to say, oh, we're going to take it over. We're going to make it, the most popular festival. It's going to be ours now. We're going to make it ours. No, they can just think, no, we don't want it to be anything to do with us. Thank you very much. If you must have it, just get on with it. And as soon as it's over, then we'll have Christmas. Then we'll have a Christmas. It'll be our festival, our time, and nothing to do with that bloody awful Saturnalia, Interestingly, Saturn, of course, was a kind of like a death god, a dark god. Obviously, his festival was held over the darkest period of the year, but he's not a sun god. I don't think the Romans were celebrating the return of the sun necessarily. They were just thinking, this is the darkest time, there's nothing else to do, just let's get pissed.
Most of you probably don't know is that in the 1800s, America decided it was going to make Christmas explode. Wait a minute, what the f***? Did somebody fact check this script correctly?
From Tudor times, but like I said before, in Tudor times, Christmas was not, it was a time of partying. One of our conceptions of Santa Claus came from Jacobean times. In the 1600s, Ben Jonson wrote a play about Christmas where he has Christmas personified as an older man in robes and a beard, and I think he's wearing holly, a crown of holly on his head, and he is there to promote merriment. He's not there to promote Jesus. He's not there to promote, well, he does sort of, but he's not there explicit. He's not there to preach. He's there to promote merriment. He's there to encourage people to enjoy the spirit of the season, which is revelry to them. And obviously we still look at Christmas as a time to drink with the family and to have fun. It's a time to exchange gifts and to enjoy good food. So in that sense, there is a holdover from those times. But America was a new country. Obviously, we're leaving out all discussions of Native Americans and their presence in here for thousands of years. This is separate from that. This is it as its own country, as a new country in the Euro-American centric imagination. It was a new country, it was a young country, and it was a country that was characterized by large, diverse populations all moving in, bringing different traditions, different languages, while at the same time there's westward expansion, the Louisiana Purchase, the Mexican-American War, taking us all the way from the original 13 states all the way across to California, by the Industrial Revolution, driving people from farms into cities where they can work in mills. All of these things, and partly enabled too by advances in transportation. You had steam technology, steamships. You had the building of canals. You could move people and things great distances at great speeds compared to just riding on a horse or walking. You also had the trains. You had locomotives, which were also brand new at the time. And again, you could move people and things great distances very quickly. And all of this totally changed everything for all of society in America. And the accepted understanding is that this prompted a lot of backlash, a lot of people going, wait, things are changing too fast. And there is too much, there's too much changing. we want something to ground us. We should have something that, instead of pushing us away to the far frontier or taking us away from the farm to the city, instead we need something that can bring us all back together, that can join us regardless of our national background. Because you have Irish, you have Germans, you have people from Central and Eastern Europe, Southern Europe. You've got people from the Latin-speaking world. All of these people moving into America, bringing totally different traditions, different languages, and this increased awareness of differences prompted a lot of people to go, yes, but there should be something that joins us all together. And, obviously you had patriotic things, the flag, and there was a lot of what we understand to be a lot of American patriotism and patriotic kind of imagery and songs and traditions started in the early 1800s as well.
This
These
was
things can bring
also, yes, this was also something that was a active effort to get us all to say, hey, forget about any tensions or problems that could have existed coming here. We're all Americans at the end of the day.
To give people all some, because you had the 4th of July, obviously, but having a big fun holiday could really do a lot to make you feel like you have more in common with your neighbors, and to make you, maybe for a certain kind of person, make you feel better about being surrounded by a bunch of people who are different from you. And, because at least you have some similar tradition. So gradually this idea of Christmas being a distinctly, in the way that we celebrate it now, being an American thing, being an American holiday that anybody could celebrate, came about. One thing that I first became aware of this whole situation when I realized that all of our Christmas carols, which I always assumed were really, really old, are actually pretty new. Most of them were written within 150 years ago. Like Carol of the Bells and Holy Night and Good King Wenceslas. I think that's where it started, because Good King Wenceslas looked out on the feast of Stephen. It sounds very antique. It's talking about saints, which in the English speaking world, it's not it.
Everything's
Catholicism.
about saints. And
It's not, saints are not big in England, because of the Protestant tradition. One would think that it's very, very old and goes back to medieval times. No, it was written in the 19th century as an homage to this medieval idea, trying to create the image of Merry England Merry of medieval Europe. And I realized, like, why are none of these hymns or these Christmas carols that old? It's because they didn't really celebrate Christmas like that back then. The reason why you get them all from the 19th century is because that is where people started looking at Christmas as, we can turn this into something. This can be a bigger holiday. This can be a more fun holiday. You had all these disparate influences. You had the Father Christmas encouraging merriment tradition from Tudor England. You had the Sinterklaas, Saint Nicholas tradition of giving little presents down the chimney that you get from the legends of Saint. Gradually, this idea of this Father Christmas, Old Man Christmas, Prince Christmas, King Christmas, they called him, and sometimes in Tudor England, Saint Nicholas joining in America into this general, into what we now know as Santa Claus. You've got the Christmas tree tradition from German immigrants coming over to America. And this idea that this is a holiday that can bring people together, especially in a time when people are leaving their homes, leaving the farms to go other places. Instead, now you have this idea of, it's a holiday that brings everybody back home for one time out of the year. Plus, you have obviously writers and artists coming up with these, what we now consider to be kind of the iconic images of Santa Claus, and and the sleigh, and Thomas Nast. I think he was the original one that, or he was the one that created our current immortal image of Santa Claus in the 1880s. Um, all of these things gradually were built upon by people. So the creation of Christmas, wasn't necessarily a concerted effort in America, but it was a subject that inspired a lot of Americans to write about. The night before Christmas, or A Visit from Saint Nicholas, that was written in the 1820s. That's not very old, and that's the first time when we have the idea of him with reindeer and a sleigh, going going from house to house. So, and that was built upon later on, and gradually, I think the first Santa Claus impersonator, the guy, ringing the bell, I think that dates to 1849. So all of these traditions we see, they only really begin in the early to mid 1800s, and they are polished up and added to towards the end of the 1800s, reinforced. I think one of the main sources of reinforcement is commercialism, because this was also the time of the Industrial Revolution. It was a time of mass printing, mass creation of things, mass circulation of items. People could buy things out of magazines. You could circulate an idea, an image, very, very widely for much less money than you could before. And I think that ultimately had a large effect on the American imagination, when it came to Christmas, because you don't see anything remotely like what we consider to be a modern Christmas until you look at the way that Americans started celebrating it in the 19th century.
And so, lastly but not least, the 1900s, and particularly the post-World War II era, did have a huge influence on it. As the world was beginning to rebuild itself into the world that we have today, after the Great War, and many countries that were devastated, it changed the dynamic of the holiday as well, and things became more family-focused, much to a great surprise. So, regardless of what you celebrate or how you celebrate it, from the Bard's Archive, we wish everybody the happiest of holidays.